records. Smell the cover, read all the verses. Tell me about your favorites on vinyl and vision.
Hey folks, how are we doing? Welcome to the show. This is episode 54 with my very special guest, Mac Blackout. Mac is a musician and visual artist from Chicago, and it was a great honor to be able to speak with him. I am a newer fan to him. I kind of found out of him through his last record release, Love Profess, which was released by Trouble in Mind Records. And I've just learned more about him. I realized that he's a visual artist in the city of Chicago and does amazing, really amazing work. And I wanted to just share some of that work with you here. This is just artwork I've picked up off of the internet, and some of it is paintings and drawings he's done, and a lot of the large-scale murals that he does in the city, which it just seems that he's getting more and more of those as the days go on. And so if you are living in Chicago or you're going through, you may see some of these pieces, and I think that from what I can tell here on the East Coast, they look amazing. And he does have some pieces available that I've noticed using the website, his website, macblackout.com. We'll provide some links to work of his, both visual and audio, in the show notes. So if you're interested in picking up anything from him, whether it be an album like the one that he is currently promoting, Love Profess, which is a fantastic album. This is what we talk about most in this show. And or if you want to purchase some of his artwork, there are some pieces that are available through some websites. Like I said, I will provide links to that in the show notes. I'll just leave you right to it. It was a great time, great conversation. We had some technical difficulties, and so that is a little evident right off the jump. I think we were both a little frustrated because it took so long just to kind of get everything in order, and still to have a little bit of a lag, a little bit of an echo going on in the audio, which I'm sure was driving Mac insane, because I didn't hear it at the time of the recording, but I have since post-production, and it's a little irritating, but it's not that noticeable. If you're not listening in a perfectly quiet environment, you probably won't notice much of it. So please, I encourage you guys to do all the things you do with the internet: like, share, subscribe, comment, rate and review, and by all means share with friends if you like him. I thank you very much, and enjoy. Cool, man. Well, hey, I'm sorry about all of this mishap, but it's really nice to have you here and talking with you.
Yeah, it's great. I'm happy to be here.
Cool, man. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I just got turned on to you recently. For some reason, I feel like I bought your album Love Profess.
Yep.
And for some reason, I feel like it's been years ago already.
It feels like a long time. Like the pandemic was, I don't know. It just broke up time, truthfully.
Yeah. I mean, because so you released the album in July 2020, or was that
No,
was that when you were done recording it?
I was done recording it in July of 2020, and that was really important for me to put on the album because it was such a huge change for everybody in a really crazy time. It was just everything was absolutely insane. So it was it was important that I stated that it was created between January of that year, and it from like one complete opposite to the next. You know what I mean? It was a really tumultuous time. It had been 7 years since I recorded an album, and like a solo album, and I'd been working with a bunch of bands. Basically in the 90s, I'm a visual artist and a musician. So in the 90s, I wrote graffiti and did all that. And then when I came to Chicago from Indianapolis, I started a band called the Functional Blackouts, which was like kind of a noisier punk band. And that kind of merged into the Daily Void, and which was kind of along the same lines. And then there was Mickey, which was kind of like a glam pop, like kind of like a hardcore glam rock band. They're really pretty and whatnot. The music was really pretty, but when we hit the stage, it was kind of like insane. So it was like a hardcore show. Okay. So that's kind of my idea with that.
Yeah, I've heard all of that music because you have all of those bands up on Bandcamp. So I actually took the day to just basically listen to the entire catalog.
Awesome. And that's what led up to this. During those bands, I was recording a lot of solo bedroom recordings. Kind of, it would fall possibly into that lo-fi genre that was like happening at the time. It's probably still, I mean, it's always been happening. The home recording, home taping, that kind of thing. Right. But, you know, I was just making kind of weirdo bedroom music back then for a long time. And then I think it was around 2012 that I put out my last group of home recordings and under my own name. And that was also the time that Mickey was kind of breaking up and I was starting my own band. And we also had a band called New Rose Alliance at the time, which was kind of more of like a more arty version of Mickey, you know, kind of like a Roxy Music-ish type of feel.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about because, I mean, you were saying, like, you know, you should get into the history, and I actually do want to do that. So you were born in Bedford, Indiana?
Yeah.
So when, like, how long were you there? Were you raised there?
Yeah, I was raised there until 16. I was there until I was 16, and then, you know, it was just, I was like the only kid that was into like punk rock and stuff for the most part. There's probably like 2 or 3 other skater kids, you know, that kind of thing. And just kind of feeding myself music through Maximum Rock and Roll and stopping at, what was it, Camelot Music or something, and just buying random tapes and stuff off the shelves. This was probably 92, you know, 91, whatever, like kind of, you know, around the same time Nirvana came out on MTV and that was really explosive for everybody. And then also at the same time, like hip hop was like coming around. So it was a huge explosive time. And that's how, I kind of got into writing graffiti at the same time back in like 93. So it was like, you know, I was like 16, I was born in 77. So yeah, I was like 16.
Yeah. Cool.
And that's when I left Bedford when I was 16. So it was like all this big explosion at that same time. And really in the 90s, like I grew up listening to the Germs and like all these tapes. I watched Decline of Western Civilization when I was a kid. And it gave me a lot of stuff to relate to as somebody that didn't have any cultural things or music around them. And then meeting friends in Chicago and coming up here for the first time once I kind of got out of the house and that was really nice to get more experience with different stuff and get turned on to hip hop and all kinds of different things. And at the same time, like obviously that was hitting the mainstream with like Wu-Tang came out and you know, all that stuff. Here in Chicago it was Common Sense and
So what brought you?
There's a lot of different influences.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, like, you know, we all have
everybody.
I mean, this show is really hard because it's like, you know, it's kind of asking somebody about one record, like the one that you think that kind of turned something in your brain, you know?
Right.
But so what? Why did you leave to Chicago? What brought you there?
This was kind of the natural move for me because my graffiti crew was up here. I had friends up here. And it was just, there was more opportunities than in Indianapolis at the time, really. I went to art school from, 95 to 99 in Indianapolis. So I was graduating art school and there were a lot more galleries up here and everything. So this is visual arts.
So you kind of had already dipped your toe in Chicago, like in this time. And so, so it just you decided after wanting to leave there to go to the next major metropolis, which would be that. Yeah, basically. And it was, so. Cool.
Yeah.
So now you said how, you know, you kind of like were getting into punk music as a young kid, like, you know, early 90s, like the year punk breaks, 92 or whatever, when fucking Nirvana came out. What drew you to that type of music as a kid? Like, because did you have siblings?
No.
So you were an only child?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always hard to have somebody kind of like, if you don't have a sibling, it's kind of hard to find where that comes from
I
sometimes.
think skating and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Thrasher, looking at all the, music stuff in Thrasher, that probably like turned me on quite a bit to that.
Yeah. But how did you find Thrasher? Like, like, how did you
No,
get to that?
Thrasher was at the grocery store.
You just saw it and you were like, that looks cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before that, it was like, what was it? Like freestyle bikes and stuff, and like, what kids get into in the late 80s.
You like the extreme stuff, the extreme sports?
Well, it wasn't called that back then.
No, of course not. But yeah, BMX, like biking and
BMX and like BMX and freestyle. Just anything that was like exciting. I guess I was a hyperactive kid. I like to do I don't know.
Right. Well, so like
artistic. There was a lot of art in it. It was
oh right.
It was more expressive forms of things. I mean, when you grow up in a small town, it's more like football, basketball. I mean, in Indiana, it was more basketball and stuff, and that's kind of all that's on anybody's mind, right, as far as like something that they do. But I was just searching, and what people don't really realize is you didn't have the world at your fingertips at all. Anything like that was a little different or flashy or artistic was like everything to you. Being in like Southern Indiana in Bedford, it was like a Thrasher magazine was like finding a gold mine. You know what I mean?
It was such a culture clash to like the way you were living, like the neighborhood you grew up in, let's say, the house, like all that stuff. And like there's so few of those kids that can relate to that culture, like skating, wanting to skate, dressing like that, kind of like that whole dressed down, gnarly, grungy thing. And then of course the music. Because all of those skaters, I mean, they were all listening to punk music for the most part. So I imagine that you found out what they were listening to, or you're like, okay, let me listen to that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because like, what was music?
I mean, it was a huge. I mean, really more than skating, that was more of an artistic inspiration to me, just to find all of that. Right. Through skateboarding, and I think that's the same thing that happened with it's probably turned on a ton of musicians, Thrasher and that. I don't know if that was like the only thing. I mean, there was MTV definitely, and like those shows, and just hearing kids play Run DMC on their boom boxes, like at track and field when you're like 10 years old or something. That's really cool. Good memories, but like it's like. It was, really finding that through skateboarding created an exploration. And I think I was really frustrated when I was a kid because I was living in a small town environment, and it wasn't as much as I love the community I love growing up in that area, and I love the people there and everything. It just didn't have the artistic culture that I needed.
So, like in the house that you grew up in, you grew up with your parents, both of them?
I grew up with my mother until 3, and she's also an artist. She was an art teacher there, so in Bedford for 40 years. So, yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. But I grew up with her since I was 3. I visited my dad in Indianapolis regularly, and then when I was 16, I just moved in with my father, and then started writing graffiti and all this other stuff. Like
that's when it all sort of came
just
to be.
I mean, I was skateboarding and breaking all my bones and doing that stuff, and it was about time to like do something creative because, like I said, I wanted to make music or do something artistic. And writing graffiti was like the first thing that really, really I fell in love with besides making music. Making music was great. I had a lot of like little bedroom bands and stuff in the early 90s, like with friends, but nothing took off. And I just kind of just kind of gravitated to writing graffiti at that point.
Well, because I'm just curious, like, you know, what was music like in the house when you were growing up? Like, was
Oh,
either of
my
your
dad,
parents?
yeah, my dad, like, it was really cool. We took long car trips and stuff. So it was really cool to grow up with him, um, and going on those car trips, the 2 hour trips from Bedford to Indianapolis every other weekend, or, um, it varied, but like, he turned me on to Miles Davis and listening to stereo recordings, and he would be playing, he would explain how the bass is coming out of the speaker, and everything, and it was really exciting. It was great. I mean, I grew up with that. I grew up with, like, he played a ton of John Cougar and, like, John Cougar Mellencamp and stuff. So, like, it was Indiana, but I mean, that stuff inspired a lot of rock and roll, or earlier stuff I did in the last decade, in the 2000s and stuff. So, and
I could hear that. I could hear a little John Cougar.
But the Beatles, all that stuff. It's kind of all over the place. My influences, I take things in and let those energies pour through me. Like,
right.
I think that's the only way to do it.
But that's cool. So, like, I mean, what's like your first memory of music, like, in the house? Was it the Miles Davis, or like?
Man, the Beatles, Yellow Submarine record. I play that all the time. My dad left a few albums behind, or my mom had a few there, and it was, I had a record player, and it was Alice Cooper, and it was like this Romeo and Juliet record that was really, like, dramatic, that I really loved to play and stuff.
Oh yeah, I think I might know that. I think I actually have a copy of one of those.
It's weird. It's like super dramatic, and like I would take my toys and like shine a flashlight and pretend like there was like this crazy interplay or something.
Yeah. And so when did I mean, I imagine that you've been like kind of just like doodling and stuff ever since you were like a baby. But like, when did art kind of like come into play in your life?
I think it was really like the whole time, because my mom was an art teacher, and I would just draw and do all that. But, in probably, I mean, as soon as I got into high school, I spent all my time in the art department, like the school down there at Bedford North Lawrence. They had a great art program. They had stone sculpture and printmaking and airbrushing and all this stuff that normal high schools don't have. So it was like pretty amazing to do stone sculpture when you're 16 and do all that stuff. So, but besides that, I was drawing and a lot. And I just realized that I was really good at it. And that's what I loved the most. And then I ended up going to art school after high school, or really, I mean, it was all about graffiti, truthfully. It was like, say, like, my junior year is really when I started writing graffiti. So it was, I guess that's 93. And then that was like a whole new world. I was exploring like the entire city in the middle of the night, and everything, my own destiny was, I mean, everything was in my own hands. I could see my name the next day and see it everywhere. It was like really exciting. It was a reflection of capitalism and all the strange, I have my own philosophies on graffiti and how kids gravitate towards that because they really don't have anything else, and they can't see a real future in anything. And this instant gratification, they can make something happen real quick. So that's what really, that was the biggest thing for me.
Oh, okay. Well, so when did music come into your life? Like, when did you start playing instruments?
That was before I started writing graffiti. I had some bands in Bedford, and they were just playing with the drummer and maybe another kid. You know what I mean? I played guitar and sang, and I have some recordings of that. We basically just sounded like, Nirvana meets like some Decline of the Western Civilization, or like, early punk bands from LA or something. That's what it kind of sounded like.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, I bet you people would be into that now, but we kind of suck. But so it's not really.
You gotta start somewhere, man.
It's not really anything to like break out of the archives, but
right.
you know, we practiced and had fun. And then when I got into college in 95, I mean, so the thing with the graffiti and why it's such a big thing is there was no graffiti in Indianapolis at all when I got there. There were like little teeny tiny things like left over from the 80s. There's like maybe somebody like, what did it say? I don't even know what it said. There was like a piece that said, I don't know, let's say it said Jimmy or something, but it was big in rainbow letters and it was like cool. I was like, there's some graffiti here, right? But there wasn't. Yeah. So there was, you know, I'd seen what do you call it? Subway art. And and seen, that's pretty much it, or seen Welcome Back Kotter and stuff like that. So I looked around and I saw these, I saw a couple kids. There was one kid on the east side and there was another kid. I saw a couple tags here and there and I was like, oh, that's cool. So I was tagging and they were tagging and then we like all met up and we kind of all started that thing. That's why it was so exciting, because we were pioneering everything in the whole entire city. Yeah. While as we were taking influence from New York or what we saw on TV, we were interested in these cultures and we were bringing all of those together and growing individually. But, you know, it was exciting.
I'm sure. Yeah, no, I bet it was. I mean, like, that's just like, so, you know, invigorating to find something that you're really passionate about, you know, and just to pursue it as a kid, you know, I mean,
and pursue it knowing nothing about it is just really weird. It's like knowing nothing about the culture. You're just kind of doing it your own way. And then around 95, we met up with some kids from Chicago, and you know they taught us all about what was going on in Chicago. And then in 96, I painted at the CTA contest up here, which is basically, it was a big thing that the train, you know, like just like the MTR or whatever. Yeah. They threw in 96, and all the kids basically they gave all the kids paint, and then they painted and promised not to ride on the CTA, which didn't really happen.
Of course not. No.
But like, you know, it was a thing to deter for graffiti, but it was like a big historical type of event which was really cool to be a part of in my early years. At my art school, I would do like really emotional, like serious, expressive work. Like, and I was learning about, you know, all kinds of crazy techniques and whatnot. And then on the street, I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, just discovering new things and creating new styles and painting gigantic freight trains, the whole cars, and doing all this stuff. Yeah. So it was like a completely two different lives. And when I graduated and moved to Chicago, those things started becoming one. And I started realizing all of this. I don't have to separate and assign these things. So music and all of these things started becoming one. And I started doing album covers and flyer art with my bands and that kind of like, I in Chicago, I also did some of the first street art, quote, I put that in quotes because it was basically, I was doing large posters, kind of like how Costin Revs did in New York. I'd had trips there, but you know, it was more like graffiti based street art that had my name and like, you know, big pictures of Joe Louis with my name on his knuckles, or like that were like 8 feet tall or something on the street. And then like pictures like from 60s riots with people screaming and like my name on it or something, like weird stuff like that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Like, so it was cool. It was like some of the first like poster graffiti street art stuff in Chicago. That was around 2000. And I'm sure there was a lot of other kids doing some weirder graffiti based street art. But
so how does that feel now? Like now that you actually have like people, I'm assuming that you get funded through like the city and through like grants and stuff like that. Yeah. Some of the massive murals that you get to do. Yeah. Like how fucking cool is it that now you actually get paid from the city to do your art on those walls?
a lot of people do that, actually.
Right.
It's cool. It's like a lot of graffiti artists are now doing that and doing really positive work and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it feels great. I mean, it's it's what should happen. We're a part of this is our culture, and and things come around, and that's how we grow, and
Yeah.
we become teachers of tomorrow.
Right. And it's a way to beautify your city,
Right.
and to kind of allow for that kind of glimmer of hope like you needed when you were a kid, like, because you didn't see any of that graffitiing or subway art where you were growing up, but you knew that it was somewhere and you just needed to kind of be exposed to it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
Definitely.
it's been a long time since I've been to Chicago. I don't really remember it very well, but I can only imagine that all of these pieces that you're doing, and like obviously other artists in the city, just make it that much better.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, now it's a totally different. Like, talking about my childhood and talking about now is it's so weird because, I've just grown a lot, and there was so much angst and frustration and not seeing any future. Like,
Right.
you didn't have control of your own destiny as much when you had to make 10, 20 of the same painting, just go to a gallery and hope that they would like your work, and then they'd make you do 10 or 20 of the same painting, and then that was your future. You know what I mean? So
Right.
now you can get on Instagram and do that kind of thing, and you can create whatever you want to create, and people get to see you for who you are. Yeah,
That's one of the benefits of technology.
yeah, it's one of the definite benefits of technology.
Yeah, it's just when you
That's
can't
the
figure
reason
it
why
out.
I'm doing what I'm doing now, is because I was able to embrace that and be able to reach so many more people, and then with that, it just opens tons of doors. It's great.
Yeah. Well, hey, I love it. I love what you're doing. I love seeing it. Like, I follow you on Instagram, and like just seeing all of this work that you're doing, and just your work in general. Like, I checked out your website. I saw like all of the things there, from the painting to the prints to the coloring to the, sculpture, all of it. It's just fucking fascinating stuff, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's get onto your music for a little bit though, because you got tons of that too. So
Sorry.
I think I counted on your discography, like you've got like 35 releases.
Yeah, I mean,
Does that sound right to you?
I don't even know anymore.
I mean, the mixture of 7 inches, singles, full-length records, about 35 altogether.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, it's all released by like basically smaller independent labels and whatnot. Like, there was some bigger independent labels like Hozak and Sacred Bones.
Yeah.
Trouble in Mind just released this record, which was amazing. They're old friends of mine. We used to play shows together all the time and it was a really good fit because they were kind of getting into the same type of stuff that I was getting into as far as their tastes. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So I mean, so the last record that you did, the Love Profess, I mean, I think it's fair to say, because since now I've listened to all of your back catalog, this is like a sea change for you. Like, it's kind of like a completely different style of music almost.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really, but it is.
Right. Well, it seems like the closest project that you did was the Armageddon Experimental Band. That seemed like it was the kind of like most obvious transition from doing that into the last record that you made. Yeah.
So what happened with that was, so that last album that I did in like 2012, the last solo album I did was called American Loser, and that was supposed to come out on vinyl, and that was it was a big like disappointment because the label kind of flaked and basically stopped getting back with any of the artists they had promised to do records with. And then it came out on cassette like a couple of years later, or a year or two later, like 2013, or actually maybe that album was done in I don't really even know.
Well,
whatever. It was early 2000. This was 7 years from when I recorded Love Percent. This was 7 years from when I recorded that or put it out, or was planned to put it out. Anyway,
yeah.
So basically, I went through a lot of changes since then. At the same time, I was starting to have, my art career was starting to pop off a little bit. I was creating boom boxes and selling a lot of those, like these anthropomorphic boom boxes, and doing a lot of illustrations and having some art shows. Things were starting to go good with that. And there were just changes happening. I wasn't as frustrated. I wasn't like, so the reason I made it so much frustrating music and stuff, and like this goes back to all of that, was I didn't see a future artistically. There was no Instagram. There was no real way to connect and show people what you have to offer the world back then. So it was all super DIY. So I ended up basically working kind of dead end jobs, like at an art supply store, a party store, all day, and then making music all night. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
making music. That's why I have so many albums. It was making music all night long, drinking too much, partying too much, and like it just kind of culminated in Mac Blackout Band, which is totally different than the solo recordings. But Mac Blackout Band was like more of like a heavy thing, like I was saying.
Yeah.
And it began to be too much, and it wasn't doing what I wanted to do. It was more of a habit towards the end.
Yeah. Again.
And we weren't really happy. So what I did was I stopped drinking heavily and I stopped smoking, and basically it was basically, I just changed everything around, took 3 months off, got back together with the band. We wrote like a bunch of punk songs, probably played a couple shows, had an album release, and then we changed and turned into Armageddon Experimental Band. And basically I just everybody else in the band was changing too, and they were open to change. So I said, we're not going to write songs anymore. Let's just flip this around and we'll just improvise, and that's it. Because I was basically improvising on stage whenever I wanted to, and we would get in fights on stage because they thought I was screwing up the set.
Right.
But I wasn't really screwing up the set. I was like playing to like the energy of the room, and basically I was improvising on songs that weren't supposed to be improvised.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was really interested in improvisation, so we took it that way. We have like hundreds of hours, I don't know, hundreds, maybe more than 100 hours of recordings from that band that probably will never see the light of day unless somebody here listens and says, I want to listen to your hour-long tapes and kind of sift through those and take the best stuff out of it. But
right.
we've done a few of we've weeded through some of the better tapes, and we've released some stuff. Trouble in Mind released a cassette, and then I forget what the label is. I think it's Mastermind Records or something in Europe. The guy from Cola Freaks.
Okay.
He was going to put out an album, and I've been in conversation about that. He's going to put out an Transit Meditations and was it Dreamways? I think that was those two albums, and there was going to be a couple tracks from that are unreleased with that, because those were some of our. I liked some of those albums probably the best. So, and we had those, so it was a good representation of us. I guess this is what we're getting to with Love Profess was it was a pathway. It was all coming around to something that was, I wanted to get away from that and get more positive and try to, I don't know if you would call it positive or you would just call it opening myself up to creating something that's loving and kind, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
that's what kind of came with it. So Armageddon Experimental Band kind of created music until the pandemic started. And then we had to kind of stop because all bands kind of had these crazy boxes of COVID, like practice spaces that all the ventilation systems were connected in the entire building. So really, if one band was practicing and coughing down the room, you're getting the same air as them. So it was like so everybody in the city like had practice spaces like that, really. So music kind of had to stop. So anyway,
you kind of had to make do.
I was forced to be on my own and do that kind of thing. So that was really cool to actually have some time to start focusing on this album that I'd already been working on. And I'd already had philosophies of not wanting to, I got away from doing vocals because I felt like it was really, it wasn't something that I was excited about. I was more into the abstract qualities of music. I really wanted to get away from that stuff. So, and I didn't like yelling and screaming anymore, really. I didn't feel like that was something that was really in me. I had a ton of energy. Like you can probably hear on this recording, I just rant and rave about shit. But,
yeah. No, that's cool. I mean, because it makes sense. I mean, obviously, like the songs that ended up on making up the album Love Profess. I mean, it's funny to hear you say how like you kind of like deliberately were considering like making something that sounded positive, because I mean, like all the other bands that you've been part of, like I've listened to all of it, and it's all pretty straightforward punk stuff. It's like garagey, it's scuzzy. And you as the front man, it's all screaming and yelling and like getting in people's faces. Yeah, you can't do that with a love record. I mean, like...
Well, it wasn't about the love didn't come first.
No, but even that...
It was all inside.
Right. It was just like that bringing on that feeling of like positivity and just kind of like these good vibes.
Yeah.
And I think you succeeded very well. So now with that being said, in come Brian Eno's Another Green World.
Yeah.
So
this is something that I was listening to while in the 2000s. I probably got turned on to it by, I don't know, Roxy Music, my friends in Functional Blackouts and stuff. Okay. But so it just blew my mind, and I couldn't stop listening to that album when I was in the 2000s, and it always stayed with me. And
was that the first Eno record you heard?
No, I mean, I had his first album and like his other, I think I had a comp of some of his vocal work. I don't know. It was super invigorating to hear something that was completely different, that spoke to me and spoke to my soul. That wasn't like, as humans, we kind of get on this thing where our brains run in tangents and we just fixate on one thing and do this kind of stuff. But so that's possibly why I made the kind of like punk and garage music for so long. But you can tell if you listen to those solo albums, there's so much quirky, weird stuff going on. Yeah, I mean, anyway, I look back on that and be like, well, I wish I was experimenting a little bit more and had a little bit more of an open mind. But it takes time to evolve and whatever. And you can tell obviously by now, if you've listened this far, that I have so many things going on. It's almost like it's hard to like really, it's hard to keep up with. Like, so like this album came around with me like basically picking up the saxophone instead of singing with Armageddon Experimental Band, and that was basically an extension and did the same thing for me as singing, because you're kind of it's very physical. And you're using your breath, and it's very romantic and spiritual kind of instrument that it's just it's been my main thing for a long time.
Yeah, and like what?
When I say a long time, I mean 2 years.
Oh, that's cool.
Like you said earlier, you can't even tell what year it is anymore.
Yeah, no, I really can't. So you were telling me when I asked you about doing this show that you were listening to this album, Another Green World, a lot while you were kind of working on Love Profess. Yeah,
I think I more of chose this album because that's the format of this podcast.
Yeah,
but it truly was something that I was studying, and I went out and got it. I had a copy that skipped, and you can't have a copy of Another Green World that skips. So I went out and got a fresh copy of that and like, you know, read up on it and like was really kind of like studying that kind of thing. I've always studied or been a fan of Brian Eno and his oblique strategies and all these kind of things, and his approaches. And I'd always been a big fan of that stuff. But really, so it was playing the saxophone, finally getting a decent synthesizer. I got a Moog Grandmother, and
nice.
And I had a Moog Grandmother, and I think I had like, you know, a multi like a mom keyboard with multi effects, you know, and I call them mom keyboards. They have all the effects and stuff, you know. It's like a family kind of keyboard that normal people have around their house. And then I think I had a CZ 1000, CZ 100 or something, like a cheap 80s synthesizer. And I think that's what I made the album with. And towards the end, I think one of the songs has like an ARP Odyssey on it that I got. But those are things I started experimenting with, and I started experimenting with making things pretty minimally. But really what most of it happened approaching the album. I wrote Wandering Spheres in January before the pandemic. That was the first track on the album. So I was approaching it in a way different way, and I really wanted to make something that had beautiful textures and was extremely moving and emotional. And you know, I'm an artist first and foremost, so this is all about expression of feeling and using all the elements of textures and whatnot. I'm self-taught musician, so it's not, I don't have all of that.
You don't have any restrictions. It's all about.
I don't have any of that knowledge. Like I don't even play notes. I don't know notes on the guitar. I don't know notes on anything. I just play.
Right.
So it's all intuitive.
Yeah, exactly. You're uninhibited in that regard. Just make the sounds.
I never tried to do that. And when I picked up the saxophone again, I was open to learning those things, but I never did because it just seemed like it was inhibiting me. And I think it's more easy to fumble through something and just really like practice and work on your own exercises based on exercises that other people might have suggested or that you read about you know, musicians doing.
I hear you. So about this album, Another Green World, I mean, I think that I can hear a pretty good, you know, connection. There's definitely connective tissue between the album that you made, Love Profess, and this one. Right. So I think it's really interesting, and we should probably get into it a little bit. So Another Green World came out in September 1975. It's Brian Eno's third solo record.
Right.
And yeah, it's pretty different compared to the first two records of his. Do you want to listen to a little bit of the first song?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite is The Big Ship. And
I am going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Sky Saw.
The first song.
Sky Saw first. Hold on. All right. So this song is one of only 5 songs on this whole album where he actually sings, and I didn't get into any of it. Unfortunately, just played just played the first 30 seconds. No big deal. It's a great song. It's a great opener. So players on this album: Phil Collins is playing drums, Percy Jones on fretless bass, Paul Rudolph on anchor bass, which I'm not quite sure what that is. Rod Melvin on Rhodes piano, John Cale on the viola section, and then Eno on everything else, which also includes snake guitar.
Yeah, well, okay, snake guitar. Oh yeah, that's the song, right? No way.
Well,
I don't know. I'm not.
I think it's based upon, so now because this album was recorded in such weird ways, and obviously, you know, with Eno at the helm and with him like resorting to some of his oblique strategies cards, right, a lot of crazy shit happened, and so some of the credits on the album will actually reflect kind of what had happened through the oblique strategies cards. So if I understand correctly, the story was something along the lines of like
somber reptiles. I was like, snake guitar. What's snake guitar?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can hear it. You know, you listen to the
Yeah.
music and you think of a snake guitar, and it's just like that's exactly what he tried to do. You know, he tried to like push his mind to using the oblique strategies to try to mimic something that would sound like a snake using the guitar.
For sure.
And so he came up with that like thing, and it's just like it's crazy.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's crazy after you learn that, like to now listen to it, and it's just like, oh, okay, that's what he was trying to do. That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
It's wild. I love it. So, considering this album was a turning point in Eno's career and marked the transition into ambient music, and you were referring back to this as much as you were listening to it to Making Love Profess. Do you see Love Profess as a turning point for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that this is like, I was kind of looking back into this album before this podcast, and I was seeing like the parallels like were crazy. How it was basically, it's just a longer period of time with me in a longer transition. But yeah, this album is a transition point, just like this was a transition point for him. Right. Pandemic hit, emotions were crazy in every single way. Yeah, it was nuts. So basically, we were all super emotional and about all kinds of different things, and it's hard to put yourself back in there because it was kind of a jarring time. Yeah. But yeah, I was taking mushrooms and basically making notes, understanding that I needed to be a kinder person and be open to making an album that was a more spiritual thing. That was, everything was always spiritual, but it was always just raging and frustrating, is basically screaming and ranting.
Right.
I wouldn't say that totally. I mean, my solo work was a lot of experimentation and fun. Right. But a lot of my other bands was a lot of like intense music. So this was just opening and realizing that music didn't have to be, I didn't have to assign my frustration to music only. I could use music to express different emotions, or actually I could open myself to not expressing myself only through frustration, but express myself through sadness or whatever emotion. So it was basically, I mean, as many people know now with, or beginning to know more, that, psychedelics and mushrooms can make different connections in the brain and allow you to reevaluate your life in a way that could be really positive. So that's what was happening with this record also around that time. Some sessions like that, and actually making a couple of songs on mushrooms or whatever. And it was something that was really positive. And I have all kinds of notes like here that I wrote on napkins during these trips or whatever. What were these? Cool. I have to find some of them. Another Green World Feels Like Family. I was listening to that while I wrote that one. Just slow down the track. Don't be afraid to play smooth sax.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Make songs that are kind.
Nice.
Don't try too hard with music. Just let it happen. Frame that drawing and give it to mom.
That's great, man. Hey, so when you were telling that story, it kind of made something come to my mind. Was you're saying how like you were kind of consciously thinking about making different music, like making it with a different purpose. Do you feel like your art kind of fell through the same evolution and like kind of like mellowed as well to a degree?
I really don't. I think that's my art's still is as bombastic as it always has been.
Yeah,
really.
It's like really surrealistic and kind of like loud.
I think that it's always maintained that. So again, I'm probably assigning different emotions and creative. I find different creative outlets, and then I can express myself through that, and then I can remain a sane person, basically.
Yeah.
You
sure.
know, so
Right.
I'm just reassigning things, probably.
Yeah. I mean, because
I've always been interested in making music that reaches people, and it's not just like an expression of me at all. It's more of a, I want to make pop music. I want to make music that people can connect to. I don't necessarily want to make pop music. That's in quotes, air quotes, but like, because I don't think I really listen to pop music, but pop music to me would be anything that I like, right? That's
Right.
what pop music means to me.
Sure.
It could mean Mal Waldron or like, anything, but
Right. Yeah.
it's like,
I
it could
agree
mean
with that.
it's totally not pop music. But what I mean is like something that's relatable.
Look,
But-
well, let's keep on moving. Let's moving
Yeah.
on because I'm gonna actually have like a question for you for almost every song on this record.
Great.
There's a few that we're gonna skip because oddly enough, like I loved this record. When you told me about like that you
Yeah.
wanted to choose this record, I was excited because I know this record.
Yeah.
Well, I knew it a little bit. It wasn't my favorite record, but I remember I had a copy of it on vinyl, which you have a copy right now, huh?
What?
You have a copy of this
Yeah,
on
I got
vinyl?
I got a couple copies around. I don't know where I put it. So,
Oh, okay. Because this is a pretty sought after record for vinyl enthusiasts and for fans of Eno. Like I've only had one of these once in my life, and I sold it because that's what I do. I sell records. So,
right.
but I remember loving it, and I'm like, I've always been a big fan, but I didn't realize that this album is mostly instrumental.
Oh yeah.
Instrumental.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and so for me, when I'm doing this show, like the lyrics play a huge part because I usually analyze what's going on lyrically, and that I can draw some stuff from that. But this is just all sound.
Right.
So it was a little tough for me. So we're gonna skip Over Fire Island because that's the first instrumental song. It's very short anyway, but we'll go right to St. Elmo's Fire. Pretty beautiful.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful imagery with the words. It's. Yeah. I mean, I guess with it applying to the record that I do, I didn't. This is an instrumental record that I did, but yeah, it makes me want to revisit doing some lyrical stuff.
Oh, come on. No need.
What's that?
It is what it is, and it's great. Like you know that it's a good record. Like it's like you did exactly what you needed to do because.
Oh, definitely. I'm just saying the beauty of lyrics is something that I've worked with
Right.
for years and years and years, and a lot of the times one song could be really quirky, and the next song could be amazingly poetic, and then I think that's a lot of the reason why some people can't. If they can't put a finger on it and it's not the same thing every time, they don't know what to do with an artist, and they have to classify something and throw it into a grouping, and that's kind of the reasons why sometimes those albums didn't hit. The continuity is the big thing about that was reflected in both of these albums, in the way that the album's structured, the way that the variety of textures and types of songs throughout the album, while still having that overall feeling of family, or it feels like love, and I mean, I think that what was it is I'll come running to tie your shoe. Wasn't that like didn't he just have a son or something? And maybe that was did I hear that, or I just dream it?
I don't know. I didn't see anything about that when I was doing some of the research. It could be. I mean, I could just maybe not have seen it.
Yeah, but that's one of the songs that I never really could relate to on the album. So it was kind of, it's always, I was listening to Bahamadia song the other day, and I was like, this is a song about her kid. And I was like, no wonder I couldn't relate to it, because I don't have kids.
Right.
So I was thinking like, well, why can't I relate to these songs? It's probably because of that. But
well, that brings up an interesting point, because like, I mean, I've always thought that like lyrics are basically poetry, and if it's poetry, then that means it's interpretational. You can just kind of take whatever you want out of it, like whatever the kind of desired effect from the storyteller's standpoint, whatever it was that they were trying to convey doesn't matter, because you're going to hear it in a different way.
right.
But back to St. Elmo's Fire. So you're kind of touching on what I wanted to get into, is that sometimes in music it seems that the singer is telling a story, but sometimes the story seems unrealistic, but completely not out of the ordinary, especially for a personality like Eno in the subject of this song.
Right.
Are your lyrics as surreal as your art?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're not like telling like flat out stories. You're not just singing truths.
Yeah, there's like, I mean, there's like, it depends on what it is. Like I was saying, it's so multifaceted. Like
Right.
one song could be, in the past, it's been, I think the last like Mac Blackout Band was just really pretty surreal lyrics. A lot of songs are about, for years I would kind of throw myself into the shoes of a teenage kid, like I was frustrated and I wanted to run away from everything and scream and
Right.
freak out.
Right.
So I would put myself back into that mode, probably because I was working through all those emotions, and I was working through the emotions of being, excuse me, of being kind of trapped in a society where I had not much control over my future. I had to work for somebody, and being a creative spirit and being chained like that is horrible. So you can't ever say that it's 100% autobiographical, but there might be that certain song that it is. I think we'd have to go song by song, then I could tell you what was up, but we can't do that.
No, we're not going to get to that.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to just do this one 14 track album.
There's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
In so little time. But
Right. Okay, well, so that's St. Elmo's Fire. The next song is In Dark Trees. All right, that's pretty much it. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's really, this album it has to be listened to beginning to end, and that's kind of like what the same thing with Love Profess. It's really I approached Trouble in Mind specifically, talking about it needed to be on vinyl because it just needed to be listened to like that. It just couldn't come out like as a digital release with people skipping from thing to thing.
yeah.
But and throwing a vinyl record on is a long playing record is you're usually going to listen to the whole side unless you're kind of like manning the turntable. But,
Right. Yeah, it's a different listening experience, and that's really kind of impressive that you had that foresight.
Yeah.
To know that it had to be that way, to like, to know that you needed the listener to kind of listen to it like that.
Yeah, I mean that was this album has always been something that was what I loved about it. Was its overall, first of all, it's its overall feeling and the feeling that you get from it. And it's he was trying to create something that felt like another world, or create something that felt like a specific place, or like something. I think I was listening to an interview or something about where he was talking about that. So I mean, that's kind of the same thing that I was trying to do in the end, in that through the insight of being able to realize that I needed to create something and be open to making something that felt kind and loving and embrace that. It's a lot of the things that are going on in Eno's record as well.
Right.
There are different moods and different, it's all under the same umbrella, and you can tell it's all under the same umbrella of the album with the feeling.
Right.
There's also different patterns that are echoed throughout. But yeah, I mean,
but different moods. That's actually the key point, and because like this song, In Dark Trees, so
some gloomy, weird shit going on.
Truly a creep of a song,
Yeah.
this is the sound. This is the sound of your nightmares.
Yeah.
So
it happens all the time. You just make music, and sometimes you don't want to do that, but that's what happened that night.
Exactly.
And,
that's fine.
And then you're like, wow, this is pretty powerful. I should probably put this on the album. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that. I don't know.
Right.
If I made that song, that's the way it would have come about.
Right.
Obviously.
Well, considering it's such a kind of like a dark and creepy and scary song, can you tell me of your biggest fear?
Oh, my biggest fear, like probably like losing sight, or I don't
Ooh.
know, like just sight and hearing, and I don't really know all that stuff. Loss of life, of the gifts we have
Especially for you, because I mean, you
as
use
an artist.
obviously
Yeah,
your sight and your hearing for all of your art.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, those are the biggest fears,
Yeah.
probably. I mean, other than self fears, like the fear of everybody giving up on the fucking world before like we could save our future.
Hmm. Okay. That
Like,
that can.
like you know, people taking the root of evil instead of the root of the betterment for everybody. That's one of my biggest fears. I'm sure that's probably a shared fear with almost everybody, all your listeners.
I mean, I'm sure that's kind of we're almost at that point already. So
Yeah,
it's not
so I
looking
mean,
good.
that's the big fear, and that's what's at hand. So
Right.
that's the constant. That's the constant for all of us in our minds. But
Hmm.
yeah, fear.
Yeah, no, I definitely will agree with you on that one. So the next song is "The Big Ship," which is something I actually definitely wanted to talk with you about. So let's listen to a little bit. So great.
Yeah, it's the one song, probably one of my favorite songs. That and Cherie by Suicide.
Mm.
It's like um, minimal ambient pop that's just like it's it's it, it's transcendent. You feel so many different emotions,
Right.
and it can be. There's a lot of things going in that song that I really love musically. It feels like um, you're running like 1,000 miles per hour while you're. It feels like soaring like a bird. It feels like you're going a million miles per hour and you're going
Like
in slow
underwater.
motion at the same time. So that's been one of my favorite things. I think it was like there's a lot of punk bands that did that kind of thing too, and I've achieved it in a few songs in the past, like punk songs that I've created, where you're like have a rhythm that's going super fast, like, and then everything's floating above that super fast rhythm.
Right.
So I think that's what's going on there, and that goes on with Suicide a lot too. Is this really repetitive, like beat,
Right. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you get these beautiful like melodies and things going over that. So that's kind of what's going on in there, and there's all kinds of layers.
It's funny that you mentioned Suicide, because that's the album I discussed with Jay Ryan of Six Finger Satellite.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jay Ryan is the reason why I know who you are.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
I just like to make that connection. So this song, "The Big Ship," we've already kind of touched on it. I could see how excited you were when you mentioned it, this being
Yeah.
kind of like your favorite song. So what I wanted to ask you about it was like, was "The Big Ship" what you were going for, like when you were creating Love Profess?
Yeah, it's what I go for every time I sit down in front of a synthesizer or anything.
Yeah. Well, because I feel like this one was the one.
I mean, it's not really what I'm going for. It's just the mood that I love the most, and the feeling that the mood. I mean, the just everything that it does. I mean, it's like I rarely pick apart a song and then try to emulate that. I really can't ever do that. I don't do it.
Right.
But I mean, I've done it before, trying to cover songs and stuff, which is like it's fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't implying that, you wanted to make your album sound like this song. I'm just saying, like, I understand how this song can make you feel by listening to it, because it certainly gives me feels all over. Like,
I'm just thinking about how. I guess I'm going on a tangent about how the fuck did he do that anyway.
right. Well,
You know
I mean,
what I
like,
mean?
I say the same thing about your record. I'm like, how the fuck did you do that? It's like an
Right.
improvisational
Everybody
record.
does that with everybody's music.
Of course, yeah.
I think that's his goal probably a lot of the times, is to make music that's so moving that you just can't put your finger on something because the improvisation or the method was so magical almost. You know what I mean? In the way that it was put together, and then his ear is making that magic. But yeah, so this ship, or the big ship, was I got married in 2012, and that was our processional song, for the wedding. So it's played a big part in my life, like, for a long time.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It's kind of like, it was that, and I think it was, what was it, the first song on the second side of T-Rex's, or Beard of Stars. It was like, that was one of the other songs. I don't
know that one.
It's, yeah, Beard of Stars and Unicorn are great albums, like pre, like, glam T-Rex. It was more of the more folky, but this is kind of, that song's kind of along the same kind of lines that I guess you could say that Eno did with Fripp and the guitars, because on that particular album, Bolan kind of played with his, like, meditative, like, singing and kind of, like, whimsical, like, meditative folk recordings. He put all this electric guitar that almost sounded heavy metal over it, which was really bizarre, but actually, like, it worked beautifully. And I've heard that he really hated that record because he thought his guitar playing sucked on it.
Yeah,
I think it's so beautiful. But I was just listening to Eno today, an interview with him talking about how those are always the most beautiful and inspired recordings anyway, or untrained players that try to play. I'm not calling Bolan an untrained guitar player.
No, I don't know.
But, you know, he was young in his guitar playing at that point.
Right. Yeah, kind of like what you were saying about how you kind of feel like learning how to play an instrument, like, technically would kind of like would hinder you in a way, and the way that you create.
I think it would hinder me, and I think it would hinder the journey.
Exactly. Yeah. There's something beautiful to that naivete of, like, not being, like, a technically good player and just kind of, like, letting things happen. Definitely. There's certainly happy accidents that kind of happen like that. Not to sound too much like Bob Ross, but
oh no, that's happy accidents. That's what it's all about.
I, like, you know, listening to your record Love Profess, and not having known anything about your previous music background. I mean, I just assumed you were a jazz musician. I was just like, oh yeah, he's like a jazz guy. I get it. I hear that skronk from, like, saxophones all over other jazz music. You know, it's just like I couldn't tell the difference between what you were playing as and I would have never considered it as, like, an, like, inferior playing style than, like, any other sax player for any other jazz record.
I think that's probably mostly in my head. You know what I mean? Like, being a trained musician, that's always going to be in the back of your head, like, because you don't know what it's like to be a trained musician. You're kind of like, so how are people going to
perceive what you're doing?
Perceive that. And really, the only thing that gets me through the day is being like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to keep playing.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Like, that, it's truthfully, like, all I care about is making quality music that touches people and that people can relate to, and any means I can go about doing that, I'm going to do that.
So, you know what? So we're technically on the second side of the album right now. Number 8, Somber Reptiles, is the next track. But I have only got, like, 2 more questions for you.
That's cool. I know we're running long.
No, it's not even that. It's just like that. I didn't come up with anything else for the rest of these songs because they're all friggin' instrumental for the most part.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead.
That's the connection between. That's one of the other connections between this album and my album.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's instrumental.
Yeah, it's 100% instrumental, and that's the big change. But in this album is that it is 100% instrumental, and I kind of was making the same changes that Eno was making, which is yeah.
You're trying to get more ambient.
I don't know. I don't know
because that's what this album is.
I don't know if I was really going for anything. I think these are just things that are happening.
Right, right. No, that's
it's all real, like it's real fluid, and it kind of, everything in life. I don't ever go for anything. I don't ever like. It's just fluid, man. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
It's like I always loved Another Green World. I was creating an album, and then I took some mushrooms, threw on Another Green World, and I was like, this is what I needed. And you know what I mean? This is what, like, I'm talking like the album was, most of the tracks were made and I had to tie it together. And then I was like, I just need to let this be loving, let this be this way. So it was kind of like this album, and diving into it at the same time as I made the record, really, it just coincided. It was fluid.
Okay. All right. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I had a light bulb that just blew out.
It might.
Actually, no, 2 of them, I think.
At least the power didn't go out.
Yeah, okay, we might be close for all I know, for some odd reason. I'm in a shed, I'll tell you, right? That like, I'm not in my house.
Right.
So yeah, this place is really roughed out. All right, so Somber Reptiles. Of the list of instrumentation on this song, unnatural sounds is included.
All right.
Can you give me an example of the most unnatural sound you have used in some of your music?
I wonder what the way he was taking that. I mean, all synthesizers. Unnatural.
Yeah, I mean, so Brian Eno is credited as playing the Hammond organ, guitars, synthetic and Peruvian percussion, electric elements, and unnatural sounds.
I think that was probably more of just a fun thing that he threw in there.
Because I was thinking of it as like, I've been listening to some of your music, and like, like some of your early solo records, let's just say they're very lo-fi.
Yeah.
And I was assuming that it's lo-fi on purpose.
Nothing. I don't know. I can't tell you that everything's on purpose. I kind of, like I said, it's kind of fluid.
Oh no, of course not. I'm just saying because there's there's a technique or like to consider, like if you're gonna like try to achieve something lo-fi wise.
What you're doing.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it was kind of probably. I mean, it's kind of like the reason why everything happens at certain times. The reason why the things just tend to move that way with nature, and that's the reason why groups of music come out at a certain time. I got like these, what are they? These crappy Digitech multi-effects pedals. I used those a lot in my old recordings that had a lot of unnatural sounds. You know what I mean? They're like, there's all kinds of weird, like cheap effects and stuff, but they don't sound cheap. They just sound weird. And you could really, depending on what you use them with, you can really create some really cool textures. It's really just about textures and stuff.
Exactly. And that's kind of like what I meant, because, see, obviously you think in the same way that Eno is thinking. It's just like the way that you layer songs with an instrumentation, or even the sounds that these instrumentations are kind of giving off. That's how you can make a song, kind of even one that sounds like this.
Right.
I mean, and he's notorious for that. That's like his thing. Like, it's just like making all of these strange noises and kind of incorporating into the music, and it works.
Right.
So that's kind of, I think, what I was getting at with the question for you, as far as like, when you're making music, is like, are there weird things like that? And yeah, there are.
Yeah, there's weird things. Yeah, there's definitely weird things.
Yeah, I mean, considering you love, or like you love this record, and you're an artist, and obviously, experimental in a lot of regards. I just wondered if you would do something like that, because me as a musician too, like I haven't recorded anything in a long time, but when I do, or when I did, I would always think of like, what can I use that's not an instrument to make sound, to try to like, just put it somewhere in the background.
I've got a whole track that I was it's usually more on like some spiritual stuff. I recorded with all the locusts. So I would record I would set a synthesizer up, and this is recently, like a few months ago, but I haven't released it. But I got a series of recordings, and I would basically create a sequence that kind of was on the same frequency as the locusts outside, because I live like basically in a tree. Like there's a huge tree up outside my window. So, and there's all there were cicadas or whatever, because it was like the 7-year, what do they call them? They called them the Brood X or something. So it had a really cool name or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'm playing music with Brood X, and like it's crazy. It was absolutely insane. They mimic the repetition in the sequence, so they can mimic the rhythm, and then they mimic the sounds. And so I'm playing my saxophone through a delay pedal, and they respond to that really well too. So it's just what they're trying to do is they're trying to. I kind of feel bad about it, because they're trying to find a mate with their mating call or whatever, and I'm doing these mating calls back to them. Yeah. And like I'm going out on the porch, and they're like landing on me and stuff, and like I'm freaking out, and I'm like, this is really weird. Like I'm about to become like a locust man or something. Like I'm really like I'm up, and then I go down the street and I'm painting a mural, and there's these locusts like humming by my head, and I'm just like, I'm in love with this locust sound, and I'm like freaking out. Like, because I'm focusing so much on my energy on making music with these locusts. So
well, think about how the locust feels. They're like, I'm in love with this human. It's crazy.
Right. I think they were freaking out about it. And then the thing lands on me, and it's beautiful. And I'm like, I call my wife to the window. I'm like, Allison, come here. And then she opens the door, and he flies in, and I'm just like, holy shit. This locust that I just made friends with flew in the house, and now I can't find him.
He just moved in. What the fuck?
He moved in, and then of course I'm like thinking like, it's the death of him. Like my relationship with this locust was the death of this locust, because he's not going to be able to get out.
Right.
He or she. I shouldn't be genderizing him, but
sure, right.
But that's how us old Generation Xers do. But
so did you ever find it?
Yeah.
You did find it.
He died, yeah.
Oh fuck, all right. I meant like if you found him and got him out.
I wish.
No.
I think I was listening to another song that it was like all about like, oh no, it was that Tuxedo Moon song. No Tears for the Creatures of the Night. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't know that song.
No Tears. There's a song called No Tears, and I was playing that the same night, and I was just like, this is horrible, because these locusts at night, they're not necessarily the creatures of the night, but anyway, I saw it as that, and I was just like, why am I? And it's like I'm not supposed to cry about this thing that just died in my house. Anyway,
I guess so.
I'm kind of loony, but that's a fun experiment. On with the show.
Yeah. So listen, I wanted to get into Golden Hours. We're gonna skip Little Fishes because it's just an instrumental.
Just an instrumental?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to say just an instrumental. It's a pretty amazing song. So, Lethargy? Is that what we're hearing in this song? Is that what the vibe you get out of it?
What I'm hearing in this album is honesty, a lot of honesty with self, and like in being vulnerable, which was like something that was big with creating Love Profess for me, is learning how to just express yourself and be completely vulnerable and open, and not have to make like a record that was just like habitual.
So this song, Golden Hours, of the hours in the day, which do you consider the golden ones? Like the hours in the day that you are either awake or asleep.
The best hours are always like around sunset. So I don't know. It sounds like the obvious answer, but to me, like that's always the best. It's if you've had a good day, if you've achieved your goals, and it's either you've achieved your goals and you're happy that you've done that, or you're just happy that you're done working so damn hard and and now you can take a break. Right. So for me, I always play saxophone around that time before dinner, and then that's like my favorite time. I get to decompress from any frustrations I would have had. I get to be creative in a creative explosion that makes me tired, and then I can relax and have dinner and fall asleep. Or relax and, yeah. So usually it's sundown.
Okay.
Right? I don't know.
Yeah. So that was basically the last question I had for you. But I do have one more question for you that I've just kind of thought up, that I was thinking of actually, was so you're so prolific. You have such a crazy discography and like the artwork that you create. So it's like, how do you manage to be so productive?
I think it's just being obsessive, like, and that's like the only way that I stay happy, I guess. I don't know. It's like, I think I was just born that way, or like, I don't know. I always have to be working on something new, and I don't know. It's just like a drive that I can't explain. It's not drive to do something or succeed at something. It's not anything. It's like unexplained, like an unexplained force, and it's just, this is there, and basically, like I said, everything's fluid. It's just kind of like anything that rolls around can be a new door that opens. And I take those opportunities and make new art out of it. But it's really management of the time and becoming really good at that, realizing as you do your work and you do your art, you realize how long things are going to take you, and you just leave a tiny bit of a buffer between like the time you have to start one thing and start the next, and then you really you can really roll with it and have time to do everything. And yeah, you can work all night long. Like when I was a kid, like as long as you're from age whatever 16 to 35, I think you can probably, I mean, this is the way I did. I wouldn't suggest it, and it's probably unhealthy.
Yeah.
You can probably work all day, make music all night, and have very little sleep. And you just, I mean, that's just, and you just create and create and create and create. And then put that music out. Don't let it sit around. That's my biggest problem. I have like 2 albums right now, like of material that I'm sitting on. Like Armageddon Experimental Band has like probably 5 more albums that we're sitting on, and we have no time to get to that music to unearth it. I guess I kind of just needed to get an assistant sometime when I can afford it.
Yeah, man.
Maybe I could. Yeah.
It'd be well earned. You deserve it. You deserve an assistant.
Thank you.
In closing, I just have this, is that I got the Oblique Strategies cards.
Awesome.
So have you ever used these?
No, but I've done my own kind of before, casually. So.
Okay. So when I opened up the app, the first thing that came up says, think inside the work / outside the work.
Yeah.
Do you want to try one fresh? Like if I pull out a new card?
Yeah.
See what it says?
Yeah.
Work, damn you. Voice nagging suspicions.
What am I supposed to?
You're supposed to think of a nagging.
There's no rules. So voice nagging suspicion. So I guess you apply that to whatever work you're doing, and that's
or in the moment we're in a podcast conversation.
Okay, so voice nagging suspicions. I suspect that I'll probably be annoyed with the way I gave the interview, because I really like to be like less tense usually. I guess these are my own hangups. I always get tense when I'm doing interviews and stuff, but you know, it's just what it is. You know,
I hear you.
It's a plague to be in a brain that's like going 1,000,000 miles per hour, 10 different ways, and then it's also a total gift.
Fuck. You know what? I didn't even ask you, like, what's coming next?
Oh,
I know
okay.
you said you have like 2 albums worth of stuff that
Yeah.
you're sitting on, but
So yeah, I do need to talk about that real quick though. I just had an album come out with Landon Caldwell called Linear Revolution, and Landon Caldwell is this amazing kind of ambient avant-garde composer from Indianapolis. And there's a couple of guys in Indianapolis, Mark Tester and him, and they run a label called Medium Sound. And they've included me on some of their comps before, but this album, Linear Revolution, is coming out on Trouble in Mind. And I say coming out, it actually already came out, but I didn't announce it because the tapes weren't here. So I wanted to, it's coming out on cassette. So I'm picking those cassettes up Sunday, so I will be announcing that Sunday. And yeah, so that's new. That's brand new, and you can hear that on Trouble in Mind's Bandcamp. We're on Spotify or anywhere. It's under Mac Blackout and Landon Caldwell. It's a Linear Revolution, and that album was recorded during the pandemic as well. That was in the fall. So basically, he sent me 2 sound beds that were about 13 minutes long, and I play alto sax over those, and it's all improvisation, basically just one take of alto sax over his sound bed, and then I layered some piano and some guitar in there, multi-tracking. But there were some really cool ambient tracks, and we were it was so weird. We were listening, we were seeing all the releases come out from the pandemic, and then we saw Pharoah Sanders' new album came out, and we were just like, we called each other up and we were like, why does this album sound exactly like the album we recorded in the fall? So if you like that Pharoah Sanders record, Floating Points, you'll really like this. And it's a lot of free flowing sax over very ambient synth type of work. Like 13-minute tracks, very meditative.
Sure.
And so, yeah, that's the new thing. And I have like probably 20 or 30 tracks recorded that I just have to kind of tie together, just like I did this album, and really kind of come to some revelations and feel it out and piece it together. So, and I'm also scoring a movie that I'm producing right now on the history of Chicago graffiti called It Was Written. Cool. So we're working with the director of the Sharkula movie. Sharkula is a musician here in Chicago, like an outsider rapper.
Okay.
But he did a movie on Sharkula about 10, 20 years ago. It wasn't 20, but it was a while ago. Okay. Yeah. So I'm doing the soundtrack of that. Sorry.
That's awesome. That's great, man.
If you ask me what I'm doing next, I'll just keep on going. But but yeah, that's like in the works, and I'm really excited about that. That's more of like an electro, like an electro 80s kind of soundtrack vibe. And then there's a lot of I'm using like samples from 808s and old school drum machines.
Cool.
And working
so
that.
Would you say the like, are you going to announce all these things like on your social media when they're like?
I just announce them as they come.
Right.
It Was Written. You can follow It Was Written on Instagram. I think you can just type in It Was Written. I think there might be spaces between the words It Was Written.
Okay.
Maybe it's
well. I'll just tell people to follow you.
Yeah.
At Mac Blackout on Instagram.
And you can see, if you see graffiti stuff, or little montages, that's probably the film, and through that I'll link to them to the movie.
Cool, man. Well, that sounds great. I mean, it's something really awesome to look forward to. I mean, I follow you, so I'll see when you announce it.
Yeah.
I'll come find it.
I'm sorry, I'm keep on writing.
No, it's okay, man. You're busy. You got a lot of stuff going on. That's great.
All right.
All right, Mac. Well, it's a pleasure speaking with you again.
Have a wonderful evening.
I hope to meet you in Chicago at some point. I'll let you know if I'm coming through. Yeah, and I will send you a gift. I'll hit you up through email, but
All right.
I have like shirts and stuff that I usually like to give out. So
Yeah, awesome.
What size do you wear?
Large.
Okay.
Right now, I'm trying to get down to a medium. I don't think I will though.
I'll send you a small. It'll be your impetus to work on it. All right, Mac. Well, you have a good one, man.
Have a good night.